Okay, last week, this caused me a lot of problems. This tatty old belt, now this was given to me by one of my teachers in Okinawa back in 2001 during my first trip to the island. It holds a degree of sentimental value, should we say. Now, some of the criticism around it was based around how old it looks. I'm not old enough to have a belt that looks that old, apparently. I'm 44 years old. Maybe I've took care of myself better than I took care of this belt, but it's been with me all around the world. It's had a lot of hard training sessions. This has been put through the ringer, a lot of blood, sweat and tears put into it. So that holds a degree of sentimental value. Now, that said, I don't care too much for belts in martial arts in general, especially in karate. Now, when we look at the Okinawan arts in general, right? Back in the day, it was more akin to what you would have found in a Muay Thai gym. So if we look at old photos of Miyagi Chojun teaching and all his peers around that same time from the early 1900s up until the 1920s, what you would find was just a group of guys training in whatever they wore. It'd be just their trousers, or they'd strip down to their underwear or whatever, and they'd just train. You couldn't really tell who was the senior, who was the junior. It just was more organic, and it kind of naturally sorted itself out. We didn't need to look to things like this to see if you were any good, because it was quite evident in the way you moved and the way you carried yourself in the gym. When I first went to Thailand, one thing that I really noticed going around the Muay Thai gyms was just the honesty of it. The sheer honesty of just getting on the floor, different ages, different body types. There wasn't this hierarchy and this deference to seniority that you find within the Japanese-based martial arts. It just worked. And it was all based on what you can do. This is the important thing. This does not suggest what you can do. Now, there's a lot of people who buy their ranks within martial arts. There are a lot of people who jump on my page and criticise what I do. Some very senior people within Okinawan karate, I'm talking 10th down above, who want to jump on and leave their little snarky comments, when I know for a fact these guys have bought their rank. And as soon as you point it out, they quickly delete their comments to get rid of it. I know who you are, and people have seen who you are, because you keep showing up in the comments and showing your true colours. So it don't matter what you talk about in terms of Budo and, you know, correct behaviour and etiquette and all this stuff. You show your true colours. And this is what I'm talking about. This doesn't reveal anything. How you carry yourself, your behaviour in daily life, that is what reveals how much you know or how much you don't know about martial arts. Now, when we look at where this stuff came from, when we look at that transition from, you know, early 1900s into gaining acceptance within the Dai Nippon Butokukai, which was a big deal for Okinawan martial arts, they wanted, they craved, they needed recognition from the mainland to legitimise what they were doing. Remember, up until that time, they were always looked upon as the poor cousins, you know, the kind of country bumpkins, the farmers. They don't know too much, they're not that important. The cultural heritage was everything to the Okinawans, and they were very proud of their martial arts. They wanted that recognition of legitimacy from the mainland Japanese. Now, in order to get this legitimacy, they needed to appease the Japanese with certain requirements, one of which being the belts. So they needed a graded system, adopting the coloured belt system of judo, so there was a progression through the ranks. They needed that. On top of that, they needed a training attire, so they needed to adopt the judo gi, the keiko gi, which is what we find is now carried on. And people want to die in a ditch over this keiko gi business. They see the videos of me training in just, you know, training in this, or if it's summertime and 30 degrees, I'm training in just a pair of shorts. They're saying it's disrespectful to the art. Look, the art I train is not this dress up in uniform, let's all say os, let's all kowtow to the seniors. I don't do that. I train the way they trained before all the bullshit crept in. This is the heart of martial arts. This is what I try to get to. I don't care about the trappings, so please leave me alone with this nonsense. I don't care about the gi. I don't care about the belt. I don't care about the titles. I don't care about the organisational structures or the senior, the kohai, all this stuff. What can you do? This is what I care about. So on top of the uniform, we also needed terminology. So karate needed to adopt a standardised terminology across the board, because you had different schools doing different things, calling things by different terms and all that. So we needed to start adopting things like Jodanuke, Chudanuke, Churanski, Shutoichi. We needed to start putting labels on things, which up until that time, they didn't really have names for none of this stuff. It was just kodesh or kodesh, like this shape, do it like this. This leaves a massive degree of ambiguity, nuance. It allows us to investigate the technique at a much more deeper level because you now don't really have context as to what it is. As soon as we label something, Jordan uke, okay, well now that becomes a head block. And I appreciate we can go into all the semantics of what uke means receive. Look, we're trying to bend that to fit our thing because we want to get rid of the label of uke. We all know what they meant. When they said Jordan uke, they mean head block. They do not mean receive something to the head, okay? It might mean that term, but that is not what they use that terminology for. It was head block, chest block, down block, chest punch, these labels. So you have this categorical thing of this move is this. Remember, this was all prior to the days of the bunkai craze, whereby now we start delving into it and looking into all the different possibilities of these techniques. The Okinawas, they did not do that. They did not really investigate bunkai and application. There were drills, there were kata, that was it. There was hold your undo, get strong, hit the makiwara, learn to hit hard, get well conditioned, learn to hit each other. It was a very simplistic approach to training, which I miss. I miss that because it's kind of gone on this meandering thing. I say I miss that. I was never there, obviously. This is all retrospective. But I try to investigate the heart of what this training was, what it meant. And the way, me personally, I've been able to go do that is through training in things where that honesty still exists. Training in the Muay Thai where there is no belt, there is no uniform. You just get on the floor and you do. Training in MMA, same thing. Wrestling, same thing. So when we start attaching too much value to these trappings, these things that the art has become wrapped up in, we start to lose sight of, well, what is it actually for? We have to investigate, what are we trying to achieve with this martial art? And if we're just playing cosplay, if we're just dressing up, we're doing some historical reenactment or whatever it is, well, that's the only value you're going to get from it. But if we're trying to understand the truth of these arts, we need to strip away the non-essential bullshit that comes with it. And yes, the belts, the gi, the terminology, the rank, the organizational structures, the titles, all this stuff is a distraction from what is really going on. Investigate the kata. Get good at training. Get good at teaching. Stop being blinded by, I was told this, so this is correct and I will die in that ditch no matter what. You need to open your eyes, broaden your perspective, get outside of your individual school and start visiting not only other schools within your system, but other systems, other martial arts. Because in doing so will allow you to look back on your art from the outside where you can see it with a fresh perspective. The longer you stay entrenched and trapped in your own dojo with your own customs and your own familiarity, you will see every single thing else as wrong, as a threat, as a problem, as something to be attacked. And we need to remove that because it completely puts the barriers down in terms of growth and our ability to take our art forward and develop it further. Because remember, none of this stuff stopped when the grandmasters or the founders or whatever, when they died. Who is to say they were the top of the tree? Who is to say they had taken this stuff as far as it could go? Who is to say that we have not evolved in terms of our understanding of biomechanics, in terms of our understanding of application and combat strategy, of tactics? Who is to say that their perspective on life from their position in the world and their little localized surroundings is the be all and end all when it comes to personal protection and combat? The world is massive, and from place to place, there is a huge variance in customs, habits, how people attack you, how people, line you up for things. We need to apply a context to this stuff so it does not die in that place and time. Doing so relegates it to just a historical relic that has no value in societies going forward. So in order to provide it value, we need to get rid of all the stuff that ties it to there. It will be seen as heretical, it will be seen as disrespectful to, and maybe cultural appropriation or whatever it might be. But as was said to me by Hokama Sensei, he said Okinawa no longer owns karate, In my opinion, they sold the rights to that art once they deferred to Japan and let them impose their demands upon their cultural art. Doing so opened it up to the world, which has been great for its survival and ultimately promoting it, because if not for that, none of us would be doing it now. But now that horse has well and truly left the stable. So now we've got to learn how to ride it. It is no longer confined to that position. It is no longer confined to that time and those people. It has gone beyond. Now it is up to us to investigate what we do with it. Get rid of the trappings, get rid of the focus on this useless stuff, this useless bits of material and words that have no meaning, and let's investigate what the art really is about and what it can do for us and what we can do for it to enable it to carry on forward to future generations.